welcome to today's episode. It's our third one, Soul Strokes, the Tattoo Podcast. I'm your host, Alexa, and today we have a very special guest. But before, please subscribe our YouTube channel and follow us up on Instagram. And also, of course, I would be super happy if you continuously keep sending us emails about suggestions and questions what we can ask for the next upcoming artists, and leave us a comment. How did you like the previous episodes? But you can also watch as well on our YouTube channel. Thank you. So our guest is waiting, and let's start today's podcast. Please tell us your name, how long you're tattooing, what kind of style you're doing.
My name is Daniel. It must be probably around between 12 and 13 years. But you know how it is. Tattooer years are like dog years. I heard a couple of times the term dropping fine line realism, which, technically speaking, throughout over a decade of tattooing, multiple styles have happened. And I would say there's multiple styles also intertwining over time, and there's a certain evolution. So for me, honestly, I could not really put a label on it because I like to put some big black work into it, put some like realism elements, geometric elements, whatever comes. So I don't know what the label is for it.
I also checked your work, so you're completely right. It's really hard to find actually a perfect label, but it's somewhere between, I guess, realistic, fine line, and sacred geometry, maybe.
Yeah, it's just use that.
I know that you're coming from Germany. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringings, that you were like raised in Germany, how it influenced your artistic vision?
I was born and raised in Germany, originally in a small city called Kassel. It's like in the middle of Germany. And I would say creativity or any form of artistic expression, be it like painting, music, or whatever, was always part of me. And I guess, again, it's a loaded question. There's so many little steps. My childhood, I can say it was not easy growing up for me. And I guess that also is like one of the reasons how I developed becoming the person I am now and today and what I'm happy about to be now.
When you started to get into actually drawing, painting, and any kind of artistic activities? Is maybe one of your parents had something like artistic interests?
I would say yes. Both of my parents, they are musicians, or my father, he just died not too long ago.
I'm sorry.
My mother, like for example, she was standing on stage performing music, being pregnant with me, and so I guess like there was always a creative spark. But I also felt that creativity or any artistic outlet was my refuge in a certain way. Because again, for me growing up, it was not very easy. I had my brother. He's an awesome human being. By the way, he's also a tattoo artist by now. And
I saw, yes.
uh-huh.
Amazing. And then he's doing realism.
He is
I
doing
checked, yeah.
realism, exactly. So, and for both of us growing up, because we come from a very strict religious background, and that definitely had created some sort of damage as a child. And I would say creativity was always the place where you can just like, go inside of yourself or express something where you just really don't have the words for it. Because on top of it, I'm a super introverted human being, like really introverted. I can flip, I can be extroverted if I need to, but
Yeah.
my personal preference is to be introverted. So it was not really having a lot of friends because being very ostracized by coming also from religious background, I guess my only outlet was I would come home from school, I would sit down, I would draw. I do all sorts of like graphic design on the computer. I think I started working with Photoshop in 1996, and this is technically what still earns my bread until today. And I feel the cool thing about creativity or art in general was you can create your own worlds within it. It's like, for
I
example, if you
know.
see like a picture, it creates its own world in itself. So there's like this reality here and the
Yeah.
reality the artist created, for example, on a canvas or whatever medium they use. Music is a big one.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you listen to music, you can sometimes dive deep into a different world when you listen
Yeah.
to that. And I
Completely.
guess that was the outlet for me. And that's why creativity became my way of survival, which also was pretty hard because growing up and then going to school, when I went to school, I don't know if you know the rating system in Germany. Like we
Oh,
have like
it's,
the grades from 1 to
yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Like in art school and music school, I was always a 5. just barely scraped off the 6. So, and
Wow.
then telling someone like, hey, this is kind of how I would like to make my livelihood when I'm older, looked very difficult and probably unachievable.
Yeah, I mean, but the school system, like they are very, very strict and difficult. Can you tell us a little bit about this religious upbringing? I haven't heard any of my tattooed colleagues that they were from a religious family. I don't have any idea.
I mean, it's based on Christian religion, which, what's the difference between organized religions and cults? I don't really see the big difference between them, but it is the strangest part about it is if you get born into it, it becomes part of your reality. That's the filter you're gonna see the whole world around you. For example, one of the reasons for becoming very introverted is if you grow up in an environment which pretty much teaches you everyone in our club is good and everyone else out there is bad and
Mm.
the devil and God knows what. And when your parents even tell you that, then you start adapting that as your own reality. So many things came with that. I mean, typical things is like, sexual suppression. So you cannot really communicate or live or speak about any form sexual.
Mm.
I would say even the music and the imagery I was allowed to surround myself with. Like, for example, it would not be uncommon that I would go to school and I would, for example, I'd buy myself like some comic books like I really liked, yeah, and I would hide them under the bed. And I come back from school, and then my mother would, for example, raid my room in the meantime while I'm in school, get the music, get whatever pictures or whatever she finds not Christian appropriate, and would just literally burn it. Yeah,
Oh,
so
wow.
that was the world I was living in. So, and I feel the interesting part which arose out of that, that's why I'm very thankful also that I had this experience and grew up in that, is if you one time learn to grow up in a certain reality of yours, and then early on you start questioning your reality. Is this really it? Is this really reality? Then you get pretty much like let's call it a sensor, like for like to always keep yourself in check. Like until today, I constantly keep myself in check. Like,
Yeah.
what is my reality? How do I perceive my reality?
Yeah.
I think that's a very important lesson to learn. And I also feel this is also something which seeped into my art because it's like by creating those realities, I have to be able to step back pretty
Yeah.
much from it.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's like everything in life, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So I'm happy that it happened, and
Yeah.
also like for example, my father, he died somewhere like last year or so, and we haven't really spoken for like 20 years or something like
Wow.
that. So I just
Okay.
reached out and sent him an email, like a couple of nice words. But the important part about it was I don't care how hard it was for me, because if it had the end result that I am the human being I am today, then I thank you for that. I appreciate that whatever you did while our paths were crossing has happened. So I feel it creates in a human being multidimensionality. Like because you have so many different realities you have to see, and then also in the very end find the appreciation for the path you're taking. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah,
Again,
definitely.
you open up a big can of worms
Yeah,
here.
I'm sorry. I'm usually the type just jump straight into the middle of the important topics, because I was like, why to waste the time? Because I think, I mean, I also told you what is all about the podcast. It's about the artist behind the amazing projects. So everybody knows that you're doing super awesome pieces. And I never really heard something like this that basically people are really talking deeply. I mean, artists. And I just wanted to, I don't know, like whatever you want to say, to show us and to talk about, just yeah, be free. So you definitely answered the question. We were talking a little bit about the childhood, and when did you realize that okay, tattooing is the thing that I want to do?
Oh, that goes actually back very, very early on
Okay.
because I don't know if you know the Baltic Sea in Germany, like
Yeah.
Ostsee there.
Yeah.
So my parents, they sometimes went there for vacation, and I remember one time we had our camp there, and the neighbor of the camp, there was this guy, and he had a giant cobra tattoo on his chest. And I mean, we talk about this the late 80s here. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Crazy.
I
Yeah.
was seeing that as a kid, and I was like, this is so cool. Yeah. At this point, I decided like I want to get something on my neck, something big. And then my parents, they were telling me all these horror stories of, yeah, you need to be careful because when you get a tattoo, they're gonna they etch it in with burning needles. And I was like, but
Okay.
I was at the point of, okay, fuck it, I will even take the burning needles. But seeing this kind of artistic expression, because it was completely novel for me, that was new, like, hey, you can paint on a body. At this point, I remember like taking from my mother like some of her makeup stuff, and I would start drawing things on my arm and go to school because I wanted,
Look cool.
make it look like I have a tattoo.
Oh wow. Okay. How old were you again? I forgot, or maybe you didn't mention when you saw this cobra tattoo. Like
Mhm.
12, 13, 14, or
Well, nah, I must have been 4, 5 years old.
really only small, so
Yeah,
small.
very,
Oh,
very early.
crazy.
It was very early.
Oh wow. Okay, so in the first class, you just come with the draw something on your
Hmm.
arm and then crazy,
Yeah,
cool.
that's exactly how it
Okay.
was. I mean, I would constantly draw my arm. Again, at this point, I knew that I was very fascinated, very drawn to this medium. But coming into tattooing took quite a detour for me because I got my first tattoo when I was 25, actually.
Oh, that's pretty
I was
late, yeah.
supposed to get it with 18, and I'm happy that I didn't get it for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Um, So it came very late on. So what I would do in school, I kept drawing pretty much tattoo designs all the time. To
Okay.
the despair of my teachers, I constantly kept drawing on the tables, and I had a lot of detention for cleaning up tables in the school. I don't know. It was just for me like leaving a mark somewhere. You
Mm,
cannot leave a mark on a human being at this point, but at least leaving a
on
mark,
the
for
table.
example, on a piece of furniture.
That's cool. I guess because of this, that you were just telling me that your parents were very religious, that you had many problems with this. That how did you manage to draw tattoo designs? I mean, back then when we were kids, I think we are like the same age. It was not so easy. There was like some tattoo magazines, but you just mentioned that when you were like older, then you bought some comics and stuff. And how did you find such a young age references to draw tattoo designs, or you were just like thinking something out?
There was back in Kassel, there was a tattoo shop I would always walk past when I came from the train station.
Ah,
And they had like all the old school flash designs like outside in the
okay.
window. So I would stand there and study it very well. And that's
Nice.
what my
Okay.
inspiration was. Because back in the days when I grew up, really magazines or anything like that, that was really not too much of a thing, like especially tattoo magazines. I don't even
Yeah.
think that my mother would have allowed me having a tattoo magazine at
Yeah.
home. Yeah.
Yeah.
So too much nice looking girls in the magazine, so she would have not been happy with
Yeah,
that.
definitely, definitely. That's why I was wondering where a younger, small school kid could inspiration. But it's so cool that you find this. I mean, it was also accidentally that you research or you were looking for, because when you saw this cobra, maybe you were looking for some tattoo studios later on, like 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, for some tattoo stores, or it was accidentally on your way.
It was actually accidentally on the
Mm,
way. And I
okay.
mean, also the aesthetic I was surrounding myself, because that also ties back in together. Considering that I was not allowed to surround myself with a lot of imagery, I started to do it in the secrecy. So, for example, I guess like with everything in life, whatever you suppress creates a certain form of an obsession. Yeah. So my obsession became at that point like the darker, evil, and more satanic it looks, the better. Yeah. So
Yes.
I got
Yes.
very
Yes.
drawn to this kind of aesthetic.
Mm,
And what brought that also to a large extent into my life was playing video games at that time. Like I grew
definitely.
up like playing games like Doom and Quake, and they were
Yeah.
highly satanic imagery. And so I had to do this like with my brother
Okay.
in secrecy in the middle of the night when everyone is sleeping, sneaking into the room and playing these games.
Oh
And I would
wow.
just sit there like in elementary school and draw some of these textures, because most of the textures they use in these games is very similar to actually tattoo designs. They have like a lot of skulls and like these kind of, again, a certain form of aesthetic. So I
Yeah.
probably started to draw a lot of this kind of aesthetic, and that blended so well into tattoo designs. Especially, I think I started drawing my first skulls when I was uh, probably like 8, 9 years old, and
That's
see, I'm doing it
crazy.
until today.
Yeah, yeah, but that's crazy. Like 8, 9 years old, like that's insane. Like that you started so early. And And also, I guess you just find this inner voice that you was telling you that this is good for you, and then that was your hideaway. And then after, I guess you were doing school till the end, or like you finished everything in Germany. And what age did you decide that okay, I'm gonna go to a tattoo studio, or did you go actually to a tattoo studio to show your drawings, or how was it like the start?
In my life, nothing has ever gone a straight
Great.
direction. It's always like my entire life goes kind of like in a diagonal.
Cool.
So
Cool.
it was not that straightforward process. I mean, originally I went to school until I was 18 years old, and then with 18 already my brother and I we founded our first graphic design business. Because after I was done with school, I had to make a call of like, do I want to work as an employer for another company? So I did a few internships and they were also pretty interested in me. But I decided in this life, I'm not going to be employed.
Nice,
This
nice.
is not going to happen.
Okay.
So the only logical resolution was becoming self-employed, making my own business or
Mm.
creating a business with my brother. So we built our way up in graphic design, and I was pretty good in doing what I was doing, but I hated it. Like I had two burnouts, and it's pretty tough if you're very good at something you don't like.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult situation.
So basically, if I can ask in between this question, you finished the school and you had a degree of something, or at the age of 18 you couldn't, or like it was just like a normal gymnasium, you finished it, and then you were telling me that basically you were good in drawing, and then with your brother you created this business because you wanted to be self-employed. What kind of companies, if you remember still, were you going to getting the job like for interviews?
With the school, no, like my entire until today, I've never picked up my diploma or however you call it. I have not even went there. Like there was no point. It was just fives and six, a few fours, and I was like on paper a complete failure. That's also what my teachers were kept telling me, and even like my father was keep telling me. It's like you're an entirely failure. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
but I knew that I was good at graphic design. I guess I could have been also well in school if I wanted to. But if you grow up in an environment where you come home, there's just screaming, there's just fighting, there is emotional abuse, there is like sometimes the police stopping by. If you grow up in an environment like that and your teacher is telling you like, hey, you need to do your math homework, you're like, you know what, screw you. I have different problems, my
Mm.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't have any degree whatsoever, but I knew that I was good in what I was doing.
Mm.
Fun fact is, I do have a diploma in design, but I, let's call it, I have not cheated, no, but I found a way around. So I was already self-employed for 5 years at this point. So at 18, I started being self-employed. So by the age of 23, I was like, I'm not gonna go to school and make a design diploma because it was important for my grandmother, it
Mm.
was important for my mother that I have at least something to show.
Yeah.
So my brother and I, we just called the school where you normally go and told them like, hey, just register us for the final exam, and then we just go there and just write the exam. Yeah.
So you were saying that basically having a diploma, I mean, I'm totally on the same thought that it doesn't really matter if you have something on paper, because if you can do that job really good, then, for what you need this paper, or for what you need to waste the years basically to learn what you already know.
And what's even the point about a diploma? I mean, how can somebody else make a judgment about me? They don't know me as well as I know myself. So how can somebody tell something, this is how you are? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I probably know better. I have grown up with myself.
Yeah.
So what is the diploma saying? And then we talking about there's so many just human factors going into that. For example, did the teacher like you? Yes, no. Do you had a very strict or very like easygoing teacher? Like there's so many factors if you get good grades, but does it really tell anything about your skill or what you're capable of doing?
Yeah, so basically, that's also good for the listeners who are aspiring tattoo artists, let's say. They want to actually just like break out that it's of course, we're not against it, but let's say it's not really the point. So you can, I mean, you also did it without it. I mean, I also don't have a diploma, so and I'm still doing what I'm doing, and I'm learning every day, of course. And I'm also in the business like 14 years, like you, almost like you. We survived pretty well without it.
I totally
Let's
get
say.
it. Yes.
About the tattoos, you wanted to finish your sentences about how you actually ended up, bringing your
Become a
memory
tattoo
here.
artist, yeah. So being self-employed,
Yeah.
having a design diploma and all of that, there came a point of where I was just literally hating it so much what I was doing. Like the jobs were not appreciated. It was a lot of graphic design, for example, for advertisement. And so what that means is like when I create something, whatever I create, it doesn't matter. I pour my entire heart into something. That's just how I function. Has always been this way. I pour everything in it. But as soon as you work in something, for example, like advertisement, so what's the point? Here's a product, it needs to be sold, create something, and as soon the advertisement was running, like for example, internet or television or whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. So I knew what I'm creating here, it's almost just like pouring all my energy and my love pretty much down the drain. So it was a funny coincidence because I have this habit where like once a year, I go into the garage or in my storage and I'd like to sell all the items I haven't used like in a year or so because I don't like clutter at all.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
So same thing. I went into the basement and there were a couple of boxes with like the old Legos from my brother and me. So we had like old like Lego boxes and I was like, they're just standing around there. I don't know what to do with it. And then on top of one of the Lego boxes was my folder with all my tattoo designs I drew in school.
Oh.
So I was like kind of just flipping through the pages and then I came like to the realization of the reason why I'm here in graphic design is because I had to survive. Because when my brother and I started the business, he had 50 euros and I had 50 euros and we had to pay our rent and food and we didn't know what to do. So we had to become very good very quickly. And there was never the question of, is this really what I want to do? It was more pure survival mode, I guess.
Mm.
I mean, my brother, we have almost lived a year of just Aldi spaghetti. So
Oh. Oh.
I know the
Okay.
taste of Aldi spaghetti very well.
Yeah.
What happened then was I made a decision on that day when I had this folder with all the old tattoo designs, and I thought, okay, I don't want to continue what I'm doing here right now. It's the graphic design agency. So I sold the Legos, and that created maybe like it was actually pretty well. I think it made like $1,500 because they go pretty good on eBay. Yeah, so I had like 1,500 euros at hand, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna drive to Berlin. I think yeah, it was Berlin, and there was a tattoo studio selling a tattoo machine, and it was the first generation Cheyenne Hawk, like that machine they was selling, and a power supply and some needles. And so I was like, you know what? I just take that money from those Legos. I'm gonna drive to Berlin. I buy the tattoo machine, and I'm just gonna start with it. And pretty much went back home, pulled down my pants, and
Started to tattoo yourself?
yeah, yeah, that's exactly how it started. Just like pulling down the pants and tattooing on my legs, I guess. Um, Good thing was that by that time I also have a very good friend of mine. It's one of my best friends. His name is David. You can find him also on Instagram. His handle is Neon Judas, and we have been always very close friends since I guess my early 20s. And he used to be the tattoo artist of the city. Like everyone kind of knew him. And so that's kind of what sparked also a little bit the excitement again, because when you start with nothing, like where do you start? Like there's, so he pretty much just taught me like, just sit down, take the tattoo machine and here start practicing on your leg. He also allowed me to practice on his leg. That was
Okay.
also pretty cool.
Okay.
And from there, I knew already that the whole graphic design business is in the past from now on. I don't want to pursue it anymore. And within a year, my friend David and I, we got the chance to have our own studio. So we created our first studio in the city. So pretty much I went from tattooing on my leg to sitting in a big studio with what
Crazy.
within 1 year, and then pretty much like learning by doing, I guess.
And I guess you started also pretty early on people, like smaller designs and then slowly bigger, right? So you were never like underestimated the difficulty of the design. I guess you were also nervous in the beginning, or
Holy shit.
right?
I mean,
Yeah,
everyone who starts tattooing has the jitter hand because you're
yeah,
just so nervous, because you don't want to hurt the other person, you don't
yeah,
want to mess it up. Your adrenaline is high. I mean, it's completely normal. I
yes,
guess the takeaway for me was when I see tattoo artists who start getting into tattooing, what I struggle the most with is they start with way too complicated designs. Make it simpler, simpler, simpler. If you can do very basic, simple shapes and forms, that gets you like to a point where you can build on it. For
yes,
example, when you learn how to outline and fill a little bit in, what can you do? You could, for example, start in a tattoo studio, do lettering tattoos. And by doing
hmm,
lettering tattoos, you get the hours in of, how do you hold the machine? You work on your, I guess working as a tattoo artist is twofold. There's the skill and the craft of tattooing, but then it's also what's going on inside of you,
yes.
because I feel a good tattoo artist need to master having a full-on panic attack and looking from the outside like he has having a great time.
You have totally right. You have totally right. You're like, you're sweating inside and you're thinking, oh my God, this line part. And then the customer is like, everything's cool. Yeah. How are you? Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm also great.
I'm doing great because I tell you what happens. As soon as you start getting nervous, your client will pick up on your energy.
Yes.
Then your client will look closer of like what you're doing there. It makes you even more nervous.
Yeah.
So I guess like with everything in every creative outlet, small little steps. And I guess that's what I did. So I was sitting in a tattoo studio. Somebody wants to have an infinity symbol, the name of their girlfriend tattooed, and you just sit there and you
And do
just
it.
do it.
Yeah. And what was your next level? Like, what was the breakout from Kassel for you? Like, when you said, okay, I'm going.
I was tattooing for a little bit over a year in that studio with my friend David, and I started to hate what I'm doing again. I started to hate what I'm doing again.
That's a big motivation, I guess.
Yeah, like at this point I was so over it, like because like you have clients coming in and you pretty much just like a copier machine. It's like, oh yeah, so you want to have this band logo, whatever it is, you print it out and you fill it in. And eventually I was again like, hey, fuck this. Like this is not what I have envisioned. So I would say the next big break became by making the decision of from now on want to do designs which come naturally to me. Yeah. I want to create designs which go back more to my roots, where I actually came from, like aesthetic wise, and making the bold decision of not taking a single appointment which is not something where I feel that I can bring, let's call it, some sort of an artistic expression into it.
Hmm.
So that meant pretty much from one day to another, I don't have no clients, versus before that, like I had like 4 clients a day or something like that.
Hmm.
So having suddenly 0 clients, that created obviously like some nervous feelings.
Yeah. I can imagine you cannot pay the rent and did you start to think, but you took the risk, I guess, and you just pushed it through.
But this is how life is. I mean, you always have to take a risk and
Yeah.
you have to just trust in the process. You just go by what feels natural to you and then you just go in that direction. You just trust whatever is needed will come on the way. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened again. So I was creating a lot of like wanna do tattoo designs, just drew them and posted them. Back in the days was Facebook was still pretty big for it, for me at least. And my first client came along and he was like, hey, I saw that on Facebook. That looks different. That looks awesome. Because at this point it was already dot work, shading. And like 10 years ago, there was not such a big thing you could find everywhere in Germany. There was a few artists in Germany but even, I mean, even when I was living in Kassel, I mean, I had at this point then clients flying in from New York to Kassel to get tattoos there. So that shows how scarce it was to have this kind of aesthetic. So I guess I just tattooed this first client, posted the work online, that created another 2 clients out of it. Then you create great work, you post it again, that creates 4 clients out of it.
Okay. And that was still back in Kassel. I'm super interested how you ended up actually where you are right now. I mean, the States and how, because it's a really big change. So maybe you could summarize it somehow for us.
Okay, I try again because like my life has been a trip. I was working still in Kassel with my friend David. My friend David at this point moved to Berlin, so I was pretty much like me and a few friends still in the studio left. The first time I was in the US was probably when I was around 18 years old, and I knew already, for some reason, it felt home. I cannot describe it better than it felt home, and it felt like a place which can probably teach me something. And Germany, I have also been a professional musician for many years. I have seen all the major cities in Germany. I have been all across Europe, and for some reason I knew this is not it. I don't want to continue being here in Germany anymore. It felt like a shoe which just had become too small, like your feet grew too fast for the shoe. And back when I was still 18 years old, I didn't know what I should do because it's actually a very difficult process to get to the United States and to get a permanent residency here. And I didn't have any of it. I was neither a famous sports star, nor a world famous physicist, nor did I had tons of money. So I didn't know what to do. So the funny part was at this point, my strategy in life was always, if I don't know what to do, then I go the next smallest little step I could go in that direction. And at this point, it was, you know what, fuck it. I just gonna play the green card lottery. And so then there was a little falling out at the tattoo studio. So David moved away. It's not that I had a falling out with David. He is awesome. Like it was just a renter from the place.
Yeah.
But suddenly I get a letter in the mail and it was like, yeah, you have an appointment at the American consulate to talk about your green card. I was like, whoa, I won the green card lottery. So I went there. I was very nervous because it was a big change. I knew I wanted it. I knew that this feels right to me, but also you feel those are these moments in life where you feel very, very, very alone because you're about to do something and cut yourself off from all your friends, your business, everything. I mean, at this point, I still have my dog in Germany, and that pretty much told me, can you move to the US in 6 months? Then you get your green card. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
So pretty much I just grabbed all my stuff and I expected that it's going to be difficult because I will start at zero,
Zero.
nothing. I have
Yeah.
nothing I can really build on because I want to go to the West Coast. I had some clients from the East Coast, but going to the West Coast was a complete new, different ballpark. So I moved to the US. And I guess what really did help me at that time was suddenly I got like a phone call from like some editor, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we saw that you moved from Germany here to Los Angeles, and hey, just want to talk a little bit about your story." So it's like on the way home while driving, I just had like a little interview on the phone, and he was just asking me actually pretty random questions, but then I didn't hear anything about it. And then a month later, I get text messages on my phone and people were congratulating me like, hey, they have voted you for best tattoo artist in Los Angeles. And I was like,
Okay.
what? What? Which is also a strange label. Like, what is a best tattoo artist? It's like when you say like the best cook in the world. It's like, yeah, it
Yes.
depends on your flavor, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. It's always
But
relative, but it's
that
crazy.
definitely helped me a lot to promote the business and make
Mm.
the step going to Los Angeles at that point.
Okay, so basically you moved there, and I guess in the beginning you just rented some random place that you could stay. And you mentioned your dog. What was about her? I mean, I know a little bit, and I'm sorry to mention, and I have two cats, and I love animals, so I totally understand you completely. I guess she stayed in Germany for a while, and then you managed to bring her with you, or can you just tell us like a few sentences about her because she's very important.
Well, I mean, animals, I totally get you on that. I love animals. Like it doesn't matter what size, shape, I just love animals. But at this point, I had a Great Dane, so it's a lot of dog, you know. And one of the trade-offs was when I moved to the US, I had to leave my relationship I had when I was still in Germany. So it was a difficult situation. Um, I would even say the relationship was past its expiration date at this point, but it was one of those situations. She loved me so much, and also I still had so much love for her, but we knew that our paths are gonna be splitting because I want to go to the US, and I announced that already when we started dating, and she wanted to go to Berlin. So there were two life paths, and if I would have stayed in Germany, I would have probably started to resent her at one point just because she would be the reason why I didn't took that chance. And if I would have taken her with me, she would have started to resent me eventually. So it was obviously it has to split. And
Yeah.
then we had the situation of because she loved that dog so much as well. And I felt if I'm gonna leave now and take the dog away from her, I'm gonna break her heart. Like
Mm.
I completely break her heart. So I moved alone first to the US, and it was for me pretty much like a goodbye for my relationship and my dog. And my dog and I, we had a super close relationship.
Mm.
So a year later, I mean, I was suffering from lots of PTSD. It sounds so easy, like I moved to a different country, but if you completely
I know.
uproot someone, put them somewhere else, and you have really no friends, no nothing,
I
you
know this.
start from
Yeah.
scratch.
Yeah.
It was a really, really, really tough time, and I kept having nightmares that I left my dog, and I felt so bad that I neglected her. And eventually, my ex-girlfriend at that point, she told me like, hey, she cannot take care of the dog. It's just too much to handle to have the great day being in Berlin now. And so I told her like, okay, no problem. I'm gonna take care of it. So at that point, not too long before that, my grandfather died. I inherited a little bit of land in Germany. So it was like worth, I don't know, maybe like 8,000, 9,000 euros or something like that. So I took that money and I hired a company which was specialized in racehorse transportation to fly my dog over a year later to
Oh.
Los Angeles, and then she lived with me in LA at
Oh,
that
that's
point.
such an amazing story. I mean, the story when you reunited with your dog. I mean, it like your family member, basically.
You
That's
know what
insane.
happened? I open up the cradle at the airport. She walks out and she looks at me. It's like, oh, there you are again.
Ha- Funny. Ah, you left me. I don't know if I forgive you. Yeah, that's
She
so
did.
cute. Yeah,
She
of
did
course.
because she knew that I loved her
Yeah.
unconditionally.
So then about your story, did you open anything or you started in a different store in LA? How you managed everything in the beginning? Because you said it was like, of course, this article came out. That was a big push.
hmm Even until today, I do prefer private workspaces. So having like your own little studio like somewhere, not the traditional studio where you have multiple artists working, really just you rent, for example, just one room and then you create your own little space in it. Because I feel what happens for me when I work with my clients, yes, they come for the tattoos, but many of them stay because of the conversation we are having. And you probably experience the same thing.
Exactly.
Because as a tattoo artist, you're also like uh, the wise one of the town. Who
Yeah.
gets to know someone very personal and very intimately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, working in a classical tattoo studio didn't create that intimate setting where people can really open up and share some details about their life they in many cases have not shared with anyone else because I'm neutral. I'm just that tattoo artist. I mean, they trust me already that I change their appearance permanently. Like so,
Yes. Yes.
it's just a small step to open up even further than that, and that's why I decided I like to have private workspaces. When I was still like in Los Angeles, I had first a private workspace, then I gave it one more time a shot and worked in a different studio. So I just walked into one of the tattoo studios on the in the neighborhood and asked like, "Hey, do you mind?" And it has been a fantastic experience. The name of the studio was Oak and Poppy. Awesome people, really just they just welcomed me completely and openly, but I still knew this is not the setting. I just wanted to give it a shot because when you also work for such a long time in private studios, eventually it gets a little bit stale.
Yeah.
Like it's just you and
Yes.
no
Yes.
exchange or
Yeah.
anything like that. So I worked in the studio for a while and then I got the chance in Los Angeles to open up, let's call it a big studio. It was 6,000 square feet, like a big like
Wow.
warehouse space. Yeah,
Wow.
like
I knew.
I had to
Yeah.
use the skateboard to go to the restroom because it was just too far of a
That's
distance to
crazy.
walk back and
Okay,
forth.
wait a second. I'm just gonna get my skateboard. That's cool. That's cool.
Seriously, if you're in this like ginormous room and you
Wow.
have to always walk on the other side of the room, you notice very quickly like how tiring that gets. So it was a cool setting. I mean, it was pretty much just like a giant warehouse. And then in the middle of the warehouse, I created this sound stage pretty much. with fences around it and light sources
I
and
saw the
projectors.
pictures. I checked it. I mean,
Yeah.
back then, yeah, I saw it was
Mm-hmm.
amazing, really. Did you tattoo there also Bill from Tokyo Hotel? He was there in your
Mm-hmm.
guest or
Yeah, Bill Kaulitz.
yeah,
He's an awesome human being. By the
yeah.
way, if you like to talk about dogs and animals, he is the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like his style and how he's talking and how he's like his opinion. And I'm also listening their podcast, so it's also really nice.
He's a really cool human being, and I really do enjoy spending time with him. Honestly, if it would be just on me, I would like to stay in closer contact just because of from just his being, I just really get easily along with him. But I guess his career blew up so massively
Yeah.
that people they just don't have the time nor the capacity, you know. So I totally get it. But yeah, I did tattoo him there twice. It was also even kind of sad story because first time he had his dog with him, and then the next tattoo we did on him was already a memorial tattoo for
Oh,
his dog.
oh
So
no.
and
Okay.
then also throughout the pandemic, like when everything was closed down, or let's call it when it slowly started to open up again, just for safety reasons, we did it that I just would come to his private home
Hmm.
and then just set up an entire workspace in a
Yes.
spare room there pretty much, and then just tattoo him there.
Hmm. Okay. And how did you feel about it when did he contact you, or how was it actually that you had the chance? I mean, if I can ask, or if it was
Yeah,
maybe
I think he just reached out on Instagram.
crazy, crazy.
But the funny part was, I kind of knew that he's gonna enter my life at one point
Really?
because my girlfriend, which I still had in Germany, she was an enormous Tokyo Hotel fan. And for some reason, I knew like, yeah, our paths will eventually cross. And then if I got an Instagram message and he was just reaching out that he wanted to have like a snake tattoo on his arm. And I was like, cool,
Nice.
let's
I
do it.
mean,
Come over.
very nervous on the first time, of course, or it was already like, okay, I can handle. I haven't been tattooing like a celebrity or something. I mean, I have a really high, like, I'm super nervous when I'm tattooing my family. So maybe it's a kind of the same feeling.
Um, this is how I would describe. I mean, I did tattoo already a few celebrities. In the very end, frankly, they're also just human
Human beings,
beings.
yeah. Mm?
They're just like you and I, and for some reason, something they created just blew up, and that's just what it is. But I feel, and that's something I learned from music already, because when I was creating music, I would also like hang out already with celebrities, you know, is the ability to not see them through that lens, but see them just like it's
Person.
you and I, and we're
Yeah.
just talking here. And I feel for them, it makes them way more comfortable because everyone else who talks to them, they always just imagine somebody constantly puts you on a pedestal.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
tiring also. They are
It
expecting
is,
something
yeah.
totally different. Maybe they
And
are
they don't
really,
see you
yes,
anymore.
yes,
They
yes,
see a projection. They see a picture they painted about you, but they
yes.
don't see you as the human being. Like
Yeah.
for example, you talk to me right now, Daniel, the tattoo artist. But frankly, there's so many aspects and so many facets about me which have absolutely nothing to do with tattooing. So even until today, when I talk to people, let's say somebody on the street or in the gym, somebody asks me like, "What do you do for work?" I say art dealer because I don't want to tell them tattoo artist. I don't want to say it
Yeah.
because as soon, or you say vacuum salesman, it doesn't really matter because at that point, as soon as you drop the lines like, oh, tattoo artist,
Yeah.
cool,
Yes.
show me your work,
Yeah.
then they look at it, and at this point, they just see you through that lens of like, oh, here's this tattoo guy. And it's
Yeah.
like, yes, that is a small aspect of my life, and there's so many other things you could find
Yeah.
out about me. And
Yeah.
same thing with celebrities, I guess.
You're so right about this. I mean, this podcast is also tend to show that of course the upsides and downsides of the tattoo industry, but also that we are like tattoo artists and many other things, you know. And I was like, I just want to jump out of that little box and let other people like just jump it be because, you know, just to show the real face and that, you know, like about the life stories and the struggles, and also for the aspiring tattoo artists that, you know, they can see also the fun part, not just like, oh, it's very difficult, oh, the market is very full. And, you know, like, I mean, if you look at this point, I think you can say in every job that the market is pretty full, but tattooing is still gonna be an existing and is still gonna go further, fuller or not. Do you have any advice actually in this case for the artists that they are right now in the business, struggling with social media and how to stay true to yourself? following the trends, but still be like, how not to lose yourself. I mean, if you have such an advice.
I mean, in the very end, I'd say don't care too much about trends, don't care too much about what people say, but find something which deeply resonates with you and just be authentically yourself and double down on it. Because the worst Frankenstein you can create is like trying to be yourself and somehow trying to be something else or someone else. So I assume I was always bad at being not myself. So, and I can also just say to other tattoo artists or whoever, like whatever art form it is, it doesn't really matter, is find out what you authentically like and what resonates with you, because that's where you're gonna become very good and where you have a natural inclination towards it. And if you have a natural inclination, people will see that and it will resonate with people. And it is true, it has become very difficult, especially social media has become a very, very difficult medium to promote business or to generate clients, thanks to algorithms deciding for us, knowing better what we want, I guess. At this point, I mean, cool thing as a tattoo artist is your biggest advertisement is gonna walk around out there. So people will talk about it, people will approach it, and what I would just do is don't worry too much about it. Just become very good at what you put out. Become very good. Put your energy. For example, if you can use 3 more hours of your day to finesse a design or whatever you do, like create an even better tattoo design, or you use these 3 hours to create some upbeat, pseudo upbeat reel for Instagram, then I would be the person, I put it into the design and I let the quality and the design speak for itself. And I feel when people see that somebody is fully dedicated to something, that just resonates with them, you will probably even not have the large following numbers. But if you have, let's say, 500 followers, and those are real people who really like your stuff and really interested in what you're doing, you have more than enough. You have 500 high quality followers versus inflated numbers, which don't mean a whole lot. So I
Yeah.
would not get discouraged. Another thing is I would not get discouraged when we talk about the market is oversaturated. We live in a world with over 8 billion people and more people get tattooed. And especially since the quality of tattoos has gone up, more and more people consider getting their first tattoos. Many of my clients getting their first tattoos actually. And the market itself will also expand, will also grow. It's not like, oh, for example, there's one tattoo artist who is very successful, but he has just so much time in the day to even do tattoos. So there's enough space for everyone. Yeah. So I would probably just not get discouraged. But if you ask me about how to build a business on social media, I'm the wrong person to
Yeah.
ask. I'm super terrible with social media.
Yeah, I mean, how you're getting your clients right now? I mean, of course, in the beginning it was, I guess, promoting, but then I guess you had already built up a brand for yourself throughout the years that you have already your client. I follow you since ever, and I saw that you're not really posting so much like us. We are constantly hearing that, okay, post 3 times a week. I don't know, follower numbers are really important because then you get invited to a studio, for example, not just because of your work. It's also very important. I mean, I think it's actually bad because your brother, for example, he has only, I don't know, 2000 something. I don't even remember exactly, but he has amazing work. So I don't think follower number should decide how cool the tattoo artist is and how many customers they're gonna have.
I mean, there's tattoo artists I know who are absolutely fantastic at what they're doing, and they have barely any followers.
Mm.
Like, so it definitely
Yeah, it's
a
a
thing.
wrong number to just like scale the tattoo artist how good they are.
And yes, now they tell you you should post 3 times a day. Okay, cool. Then everyone jumps on that bandwagon. And then what?
Yeah.
Then they tell you, okay, now you need to post 6 times a day. And then what? It's like a race you cannot win. When I was more concerned with my social media, I did it in certain stages where I was putting more energy into it. I noticed that I could just use that same energy to create better tattoos. And if you ask me how I create my business now, I would say it's consistency of being so long around and just putting work out there. That's one factor. The second factor is the impression I left with people. Many of my clients are actually returning clients, and it didn't even matter. Like after Los Angeles, I moved to Santa Barbara. My clients followed me there. Then I moved to Hawaii. And then my same regular clients, they would fly to Hawaii and get tattooed there. And
Yeah.
again, it is like if you can have an amount of clients which just trusts you and becomes regular clients, you don't need to generate constantly just new business and new business, because you have sometimes people over. I have clients I'm tattooing over 10 years already, you know,
Yeah.
so, and I guess that just builds up. And I assume the best thing you can do is it's almost like you put up a light like very high where everyone can see it. Like, for example, this is my work, this is what I'm about, and just not only post your work, but also share a bit about yourself, because it's important for a client to know who they're gonna engage with. Does this person vibe with them? Like, does this person understand the vision they're having? And when you put this light up, I would say it just naturally attracts people. I'll give you an example. I just had a client not too long ago. She had no tattoos whatsoever, and she always hated tattoos. She said they're just fucking ugly.
Pretty simple saying. Yeah. Yeah.
So some big tragedies happen in her life, including suicide of relatives, and big things happen, and they happened all in a very short time window. So she wanted just to get her mind off a little bit from like the trauma she was going through, and she just went on Instagram and just swiped a little bit through, and then somehow one of my pictures came up, and she said she didn't know why, but in that night she reached out. She said, I never had a tattoo, I never thought about it, but this guy I want to meet. And if the way to meet him is to get a tattoo from him, that's the way. Like, how we gonna do it? So she just reached out. I created a tattoo for her, and since then we're actually close friends at this point. I mean,
That's
we text each other every evening. It's like, you
great.
know how it is.
Yeah.
Some clients, they become really close friends.
Yes.
But how did this person really find me? Was it social media marketing? I don't think
Mm.
so. I guess there's a certain, and it's probably hard because it's so intangible, but put yourself out there and you will attract the right people.
It's again
There's
about,
just, there's a mutual attraction.
it's again
And
this trust and trust the process, what you were just saying in the very beginning, right?
yeah, but sometimes it's a gut feeling.
Yeah.
It's like for some reason, like, for example, I saw the request like for this podcast. And I was like looking a little bit. I checked out like an episode on your YouTube channel. I was like, yeah, I can vibe with her. Like, I didn't even have to look any further into it. I was like, yeah, there's a resonance, and I can go with that. And I feel that's what other people feel as well. And
So that makes actually for the new artists, like maybe it's gonna be good to hear for them that takes a little bit of burden off their shoulders. That it's gonna be like, okay, actually, yes, it's very important. Everybody is keep saying that, like, pay for promotion, do that, do this. I mean, when I also started, I had the Instagram, but I didn't do anything on it. So I think I'm doing it since like 3 years. Of course, I'm trying to push it, and but every now and then I'm constantly coming to the question like, does it bring anything really, or it's really what you're saying, that there's this vibe and the right customer would find me even when I don't push the content out?
I would say those people who will actually become your clients eventually, those are not even the people who like any of your posts. They're just the silent observers you have never heard about it. I mean, how many times you have checked out something or you follow certain things and you don't really interact, but you have it in your peripherals. You appreciate a lot what they do, but you don't necessarily interact with them. So technically speaking, for the Instagram stats, for example, you are not a potential client because you never interact, you never do anything. But it's very often that exactly those people are the ones who reach out, the ones who were the whole time in the background. They were not even, maybe not even following you
Yeah.
or anything like that. They just kept you in their peripherals. And so I would not get discouraged of small following numbers. Really just trust that process. Just focus your time in the work you're creating. Yes, if you feel you want to make like a little bit advertisement, sure, why not? Like, I have
Try
not
out.
advertised my business yet. I've never had done any um like certain ads or anything. And I would probably consider it down the line if social media really makes more of a nosedive as it does already. But again, I would not get discouraged. And then also the factor coming from music was the same thing. When I was starting creating music, internet was really just in the baby shoes, and it was really about that you create a connection with the people in your surrounding. Like, for example, you work in a certain city, and then you start going out and meet people in real life. And then it's like, oh yeah, I started to tattoo. And it's like, oh cool, show me your work. And then naturally and organically, you will create potential clients and friendships out of that. And
I mean, as an introvert is also pretty difficult because I'm also introvert, and going out and talking like, oh, I'm a tattoo artist. I don't know, I never did that, and yeah, but it's true. I mean, on the tattoo sessions, you're totally right about that. Like, their friendships as well created, and not just like getting a tattoo. So we are like listening to their life
there's a,
story.
as you said earlier, trust. There's a
Yeah,
trusting
yeah,
relationship. They just understand where you're coming from. And I feel that's why it's also so unbelievably important when you interact with people. There cannot be any ego. There cannot be any bullshit, no show. Just be authentically yourself. And that's when people start to trust you as a human being because, frankly, they're trusting you with a whole lot. I mean, you can literally like humiliate, or I don't know what even the word is for it. Like, I think their body, you can cause them physical damage. You can make them feel uncomfortable in their own skin. There's
yeah,
a lot of trust
yeah,
involved. And I would say it's a place to have no ego whatsoever.
yeah.
It is about, hey, we're sitting here together and we're creating the most beautiful thing we can.
So funny that you're saying this word ego, because like 1 second ago I was just thinking about the same word with the same context about this, like the tattoo session. And also I guess the ego is working when we are checking at the follower numbers, because like, oh, our ego is like fed that, like, great, we have like, I don't know, 100,000 or 200,000 followers. That's cool for the ego, but it's actually probably it's not bringing too much like customers at the end, because they maybe just checked the post, they followed up, and that was it. And maybe there are like 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 people who are like getting really tattooed or interested in the post.
I would say with the ego, the size of the ego is the distance between you and the other human being.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have two large egos, like you can be even sitting in the same room, 1 meter apart, but between you, there is worlds apart
Mm.
based on the size of the ego. And I feel when you just cut that out, like when you just, I don't even know how to describe it, just
Be your authentic self.
care about what you're doing there
Yeah.
instead of just making
Yeah.
a show around yourself and who you are. And like, for example, when people tell me like, oh yeah, you have over 100,000 followers, I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't mean,
Yeah. It's
it
just a
doesn't
number.
mean anything.
Mm. Yeah, man, that's a really, really good thing that we came in the conversation into this point, because that's like one of the keep coming back questions. Like, it's really like circling around all the time, and it's so good to hear from you that it's like really, you in the conversation, it's very interesting to hear a different perspective, and that you're like, you don't care at all. I mean, I also learned in life, basically, when you were really wanting something, it's you just gonna push it away. So you just like have to just get
Hmm.
loose, and then do
Hmm.
something else what you're really interested in, and then just put your work out there and be transparent and authentic, and then it's going to come to you. You're totally right. It's super cool.
It's almost like you naturally attract it, you know? As soon as you get desperate and you try to reach for it and grab for it, here's a good analogy. It's like petting a cat.
Yeah. Yes. True
If
story.
you just walk up to that cat and you just reach out, the cat is like hissing at you and be like, get
No.
the fuck away from me.
Yes.
But if you sit and dwell in the same room with that cat for a
Mm.
while and you just check it out of the corner of your eyes, then it slowly strolls over to you and it's like, okay, I'm ready. I want to get petted now. And
Yeah.
that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Um,
And not
you
just
just
follower.
allow it to happen instead of grabbing it.
Hmm. Yeah, but of course you have to. I mean, in career, not just about the follower number, and not just like in as a general life truth. I mean, super cool that you reminded me of that, and I think the listener is gonna be also super happy about it, because it's a very, very cool general truth for the last minutes of our hours together. Don't stress yourself out, and maybe when people are like keep circling and keep telling these sentences, yeah, your basic, what you just started the podcast with, that you said you questioned the reality. Maybe you need to question it, that, okay, what's happening actually if I'm doing the same? Maybe I should just be really myself, find really like the core, what I'm interested in, right? As you said.
Mhm.
And then do that and be better. And also, it's like a personal question as well, like how you are keep focusing and concentrating and get inspired. Like, what would as well advise that you keep yourself in the flow?
That's actually a good question here. I said earlier, tattooing is a little part of my life. It is the other 90% of my life which actually make this whole thing happening. Yeah, there's one part, yeah, okay, I created tattoo design, and I keep telling my clients, you're not paying me for the tattoo. The tattoo I would do for free for you. Like, I don't mind. Yeah. You're paying me the money it takes me to be in a place where I can naturally create these things, where I don't have any stressors, where I don't have any worries, where my rent is paid, my insurances are paid, where I create this environment. And for me, a lot like my quote unquote work is I spend tons of time in nature. I just walk by myself in the most desolate, empty places. And that's called my creativity and my sanity comes from. But in order to do so, um, you need to make it a priority in your work routine because it's one thing if you're just doing tattoos, then eventually you will burn out. It's
Yeah.
I had two burnouts and one I almost scraped a burnout until I decided, it is a wholesome picture. Like if you want to stay creative, I mean, sometimes I start a new design and I have the worries of like, what if nothing comes? I don't know. Maybe nothing comes today. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel the creativity and your ability to create beautiful things into this world comes from how do you live your life. Everything around it is actually what enables you for this little piece, which is your tattooing career. Like, for example, how are your interactions with other humans? Do you go in nature? Do you meditate? Do you read? Do you go inside of yourself? Do you do all of these steps? Because that's where literally in the end, the energy comes from when, for example, I create a new tattoo design. I go on a long hike, I contemplate a little bit, and then I just sit down and be like, let's see what happens. It's a play. I don't even take it too serious. It's more like, like a child playing around with its toys. And that's when I'm doing a tattoo design.
Yeah.
And because it comes with such a playfulness, there's no stress, no worries, and all of that, which pretty much just attracts very negative emotions, which will show up in some sort of another in insecurities in your designs, or that you're just not capable to perform that day. I mean, tattooing is a super stressful job because
Yeah.
you have so much responsibility.
Yes.
And there's just two ways how you get through that. Either people go to substance abuse just to deal with all of that amount of stress. I have met enough people who
Yeah.
have enormous substance abuse issues, understandably, absolutely understandably. Or the path number two is you create a wholesome thing where you say like my life and my work is like it comes like from a place of restedness, of allowing things to happen, also allowing failure to happen. Just be fully open for whatever experience it is. And at this point, it takes a little bit the pressure off from you. And I guess that's also where my creativity comes. Like, for example, when I'm stressed, my creativity is
It's
down. It's
blocked.
at
Yeah.
zero.
Basically.
Nothing happens. So my work will be then when I feel I'm getting stressed. What do I have to change in my day-to-day life to reduce my stress? And that's technically the work I'm doing to create my tattoos.
Mm.
I keep all the stress off my plate.
Yeah.
Or another analogy which comes to me is um, it's almost like I let the design or whatever it is fall into my lap, but everyone's lap is always occupied. They have always so much shit on their lap because of, oh, I want these and I need that and all of that. And just to create tabula rasa, complete just an empty slate and be like, okay, I have the space in my life to let something happen and emerge on its own accord. And I guess that's why don't run out of ideas.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting as well. I mean, you have totally right. Sometimes I do have so many things in my mind that there's no place that creativity can just like slip inside and create something new, cool design. Then I have to go for a run. It cleanses everything and then it comes naturally. So that's my medicine, but everyone has their own for that. Like for you,
Hmm.
the long walks, but it's very interesting. Don't let yourself be over occupied and then that stress you, of course, because that's going to block your creativity, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Thank
it
you.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
what creative expression it is, could be tattooing, could be whatsoever. It's just create the ground where something can grow. That's all I can tell someone. It's like create the ground, and that ground starts outside of your career, outside of your job. If everything is aligned there, the other parts will also align as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, the 90% what you were saying. That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching today's episode. That was our third one with Daniel Meyer. I hope you enjoyed the whole conversation as much as I did. It was super interesting. Please let us know how did you like the last 1.5 hour with us. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, follow on Instagram, and stay up to date. Thank you, and see you in the next